All right, it is 2 o'clock Eastern, and just want to let people filter in here for a second or two, and we'll get started. We were just chatting about weekend plans, and I am going to be brave enough to take, it's my son's birthday, so we're going to the Great Wolf Lodge, and he's bringing 2 friends, so 4 boys and a almost 2-year-old at the Great Wolf Lodge. Should be interesting this weekend.
That's brave.
Yeah.
That's really
water
brave.
park too, so we'll see. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
That's not a weekend for you at all.
Right. And remember, I'm not drinking wine, so anyway,
Wow.
well, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of the 12 days of TMC. We hope you are enjoying what we put together for you so far. I have to tell you, as a team, we are so excited to see such great attendance and engagement from all of you that have been on these sessions. So thank you, and we appreciate you. This is only week 1. We have a bunch of more sessions for you over the next 2 weeks that we know you'll love. Add them to your agenda, attend at least 10 sessions. This one counts. And you'll receive a stamp on your Whova passport for each session attended. And the attendee with the most stamps at the end of 12 days will win a $200 Amazon gift card. So I'm excited to announce that both women that I'm about to introduce have been recently promoted in their positions and are truly powerhouses in their organizations. Dr. Jessica Lautz is now Deputy Chief Economist and Vice President of Research for NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors. Jessica, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm super psyched, and I'm super psyched about my title too.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
And here to facilitate the chat with Jessica is Beth Eller, the newly appointed Senior Vice President of Mortgage Lending at Reliant Federal Credit Union out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Congratulations to you, Beth.
Thank you very much, Amy.
We appreciate you doing this for TMC. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm excited to hear what Jessica has to say. So Beth, I'm going to pass it over to you to take it away.
Gosh, that's great. Thank you, Amy. And Jessica, I'm looking so forward to this chat. You are a wealth of information. I read your blog and the 11 takeaways from the 2022 profile of home buyers and sellers out on the NRA site. And this is so chock full of pertinent information for every aspect of our industry. But I got a question for you. I noticed in your bio that I read on the Whova site, it says that you analyze trends for NAR members and housing consumers. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do so everyone can get a frame of reference of that, please?
Yeah, totally. So I've been at NAR for, oh my goodness, nearly 16 years now. And what I do is I oversee all of our research, essentially. So surveys that go out to NAR members, realtors who are keeping a pulse on the real estate market on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, but then also NAR consumers, people who are using real estate agents, using mortgage brokers, are active consumers in the real estate market who have purchased homes in the last year, and trying to understand their behavior, how that has changed, how that's evolving, how their demographics are changing.
That is great. I have to ask you one follow-up to that. So how does one, did you grow up and say, hey, I want to be a research, I want to be the deputy chief economist and VP of research, or did you just fall into this line of work?
I kind of fell into it. I don't know that anyone dreams that they want to just dig into data, but I got real nerd real early. One of my first projects that I worked on, I was actually an undergraduate at Central Washington University in the middle of Washington State. I'm from a really tiny little town, 1,500 people. There was a big resort that was coming in, and we were surveying and seeing the consumer and the public reaction to this. And there was a lot of NIMBYism that was going on that was saying, we do not want this resort here. We do not want these people coming in, building homes. This is really going to upend our community. And that was my hometown. That was the first research project I ever worked on as a university student. And I was like hooked. From that moment on, I said, wait a second, this is huge. These are jobs being created. This impacts the community and impacts the economic welfare. And in all honesty, I think we're all talking about it. We need more YIMBYism. We need more building in our local communities. And we need more homes. And since that moment on, 20 years later, here I am.
Well, that is awesome. I love to hear that story. I always love to hear how people get into the real estate industry or the mortgage industry, because it's always an interesting story. Let me ask you a question. I noticed number one in the article that you wrote said first-time home buyers dropped to an all-time low of 26% from 34% just a year ago. What do you think about that statistic? How does that sound?
Well, it's incredibly depressing, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of reasons why we're not seeing first-time home buyers in the marketplace today, dropping it to this all-time low. Obviously, affordability, a huge constraint, the lack of inventory dropping to an all-time low that we've recorded since 1999. But outside of the housing market, people are facing rising rents, and it's hard to save for a down payment in this inflationary environment when you have to buy more at the grocery store for less, and you're just not getting the goods that you had in the past. You're filling up your gas tank, you're paying more. It's just incredibly difficult for families today and individuals to enter the buying market.
I think that accounts for a lot of the instability we're seeing in markets today. It's like, we want to hear this good news. We want to hear that job growth was over its target. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's not a good thing. It's such a mixed message out there in the world right now, as far as the inflationary pressure and then home buying in addition to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And right, the jobs numbers were encouraging today. We want a strong job market, but at the end of the day, what is that going to mean for inflation? What is that going to mean for the Fed? Are they going to continue rising rates? That's the expectation moving forward. Though I have to say the encouraging sign the last 3 weeks have been mortgage rates ticking down closer to 6.5. That's actually much healthier for buyers to be able to enter in. The credit box opens certainly for some consumers.
How do you feel about that new announcement, 726-200? I mean, when I got in the business 35 years ago, I think the jumbo limit, the conforming loan limit was like 103-500 or something like that. I mean, it was crazy,
Yeah. I mean, I think this is really good for many home buyers out there, especially if we're talking about coastal markets. We know that home prices have pushed up in 99% of markets on a year-over-year basis. We're still seeing home price growth. And we keep hearing all these headlines that the sky is falling in the real estate market. Certainly there's slower sales, but home prices are still pushing up. And so we need to be able to make sure that people can obtain a loan, a conventional financing, at the price where homes are right now. And so it's just essentially keeping pace with that.
I agree with you. And what do you think effect that has, on a first-time home buyer, kind of that affordability index that we're all talking about? Is 726 really anywhere in the first-time home buyer range, or do you see that more as the move-up buyer? And
Yeah, I think it would be rare for that to be a first-time home buyer. Of course, every local market is different, so I say that, but if people are tuning in and they're in California, if they're in Seattle, Boston, DC, it's possible that you have a first-time home buyer who's buying at that price point, though it would be pretty rare. They're typically at that more affordable price point, often now having generational transfers of wealth, so put them into that home.
I think that is a big issue. And I noticed too, your number 2 point was the age of first-time home buyers and repeat buyers hits an all-time high. Do you think that's a COVID effect hangover? Or do you think that's just millennials moving through the pipeline? Or
Yeah. So when we look at the age of first-time home buyers, obviously they're facing so many delays saving for that down payment. They're now 36 years old. They're closer to 40 than they are to 30. It used to stay in this really tight band of 28 to 32 for first-time home buyers. The last couple of years, it ticked up to 33, and now this huge jump to 36. It really does speak, though, unfortunately, to that lost housing wealth that people would obtain over that last decade that essentially they're missing in homeownership. And for repeat buyers, they're staying in their homes for longer periods of time. They financed at a lower rate, and they're saying, okay, I'm going to stay put. And now I'm moving at this later point. Also, outside of COVID, people were living longer and working longer, feeling healthier later in life. So they're feeling absolutely confident taking on this mortgage and primary residence later in life too.
I can see that too, and I heard a statistic recently that the millennials tend to do everything about 7 years later than their parents' generation did. So I'm kind of going, well, have they finally gone off and lived in Colorado for a couple of years and worked at a ski resort, and now they're ready to like get married and settle down and buy a home? Or they have that little bit of wanderlust, and I'm a bit envious of that, but
Oh, it sounds nice. Yeah. To be able to do that and that freedom to do that. And, people are getting married later in life. And it's really important now to have that dual income. And something that I think is unique that we're seeing right now is that people may not necessarily be married when they buy their first home. About half of them are, but they're also saying, wait a second, I could buy as a roommate. And that's some housing wealth that I could gain. I could bring this income together with someone I've been renting with for a long period of time and be able to purchase this home, or even an unmarried couple. It's hard for a single woman to be able to buy a house on herself by herself because she typically has a lower household income, unfortunately.
Well, I know that kind of feeds into your number 3 point, which is the share of white and Hispanic Latino borrowers grew while
Mhm.
Black, African American, and Asian Pacific Islander buyers retreated.
Yeah.
Interesting
Yeah.
demographic there.
Yeah, it's incredibly depressing. Honestly, we have done a lot of research on this in the last year. We've done actually 3 different reports that dig into race and the homeownership gap, the home buying gap that continues to persist, especially among Black individuals and white individuals in the home buying market. And this year, honestly, we're just seeing this growth of wealthier, whiter, older home buyers, and just seeing this retreat of everyone else, which is really discouraging. We know that Black buyers are facing so many hurdles in entering the market. They're paying a disproportionate amount of income to rent. So if their rent is going up for everyone and they're paying a disproportionate amount, how do you save in that environment? And we also know there's hurdles such as student loan debt, more likely to be first-time home buyers, and less likely to have that housing equity to be able to rely on as well.
One of the things you and I talked about, that's all disturbing. And one of the things that you and I talked about was the phenomenon we're all aware of the conglomerates coming in and buying up cash buyers,
Mhm.
buying up all these first time entry level homes. And you made a point to me that I was kind of unaware of it, that it's almost like they've targeted those specific markets.
Yeah, we absolutely do see that institutional buyers, they're absolutely coming in. And we do, it's hard to know whether this is a brand new phenomenon or if it's just being talked about more. And we don't have data to support that, unfortunately. But what we do know is that it's more likely to happen in neighborhoods where we do have a higher proportion of Black individuals living in that neighborhood. It's more likely to be in low income neighborhoods. It's more likely to be where first time home buyers would be. So all of those populations being harder hit and having a harder time entering the marketplace, because how in the world can you compete when you have an FHA, a VA loan in this marketplace last year with all of this competition against that all cash buyer?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I sold a rental property. I had a condo last year and I had 18 offers in 2 days. And I went through and I can say, honestly, I went through and ranked them like how much due
Mhm.
diligence do you have? When do you want to close? Are you cash? What type
Mhm.
of loan are you getting? And I don't think the market's quite that superheated now, but it certainly was at that time. And
Yeah.
it's real to look at. And by the way, I will say I made sure I chose an individual and not not an institutional buyer. 'Cause
Well,
I
good
didn't
on
want to
you.
do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely for doing that. It's a hard thing to weigh, and especially last year where we had those multiple bids and people being willing to bid substantially more than the asking price of that home as well.
Yeah. Well, how about the phenomenon too for small town rural areas with the migration they've got and buyers being willing to move further out?
Yeah. We blinked when we saw that data come back. We double checked our math 500 times, but truly people are moving farther out. We've heard the anecdotal stories in the last 2 years, really since the beginning of COVID. And what we have seen is that people are embracing it. They used to move just 10 to 15 miles. Now they're moving 50. That's a long, long distance. They have to rely on those local experts once they get there, their mortgage broker, their local realtor, to be able to tell them the neighborhood, to be able to tell them financing options, because they may not be familiar with that at all. We're also seeing, top priorities for doing so are quality of life, the quality of the neighborhood, friends and family, where's my support system, but also affordability. It's so key right now. And of course, workplace flexibility. I'm at home today. I traveled this week and, I had late flights and I was like, I just have to do this from home this morning, be able to roll out of bed a little later this morning. But that flexibility that I had today, I wouldn't have had this a few years ago. It's lovely to be able to embrace it.
It is interesting to see that. I had storms rolled through here on was that Wednesday morning, and I was like, "Oh, looks like a good work from home day. I don't need to go out in this mess yet."
No, totally. Yeah. Embrace it when you can, right?
Absolutely. Well, how about number 6 and 7? You've got huge all cash repeat buyers, and I know we face that in the mortgage industry now. When you talk to real estate agents, they're like, "Well, they're all cash buyers. They're all
Mhm.
cash buyers," and we're like, "Where's all this money coming from?
Mhm.
How are these people continuing to do that?"
Yeah. Yeah. If it's not happening for first time buyers, I will say it's like 3% of the market for first time buyers.
Yeah.
But for repeat buyers, it's jumped 27% up from 17% last year.
Wow.
people have a lot of housing wealth. So if you've lived in your home for a decade, you're sitting on about $210,000. And this is a national number. Obviously, in some markets, that's going to be way higher and some lower. But $210,000 can actually buy you a lot of home in a lot of places of the country. And especially if you're moving to a small town or rural area, maybe you're just financing a very small portion of that mortgage. And if you've been in your home for longer, you may even have more equity that you're sitting on. So this transition, I think, to these outer, more affordable areas is allowing people to do that as well.
That's just really so amazing when you get down to it. I mean, to think that people can pay all cash for homes routinely in America, you didn't see that. I mean, our parents didn't have that kind of wealth either.
No. Yeah. It's definitely using the nest egg, I expect, in a different way than we have seen historically. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things you and I talked about as well, and it's a bullet point in here too, is we typically say in the mortgage business, duration on a mortgage is about, 7 years, regardless of what the rate is, regardless of the term, it's going to be about 7 years. But I think these low rates we've had the last couple of years have really expanded that term out.
Yeah, they certainly have. People are staying in their homes for a longer period of time than we've seen historically. They used to move every 6 to 7 years because something in your life happened. It upended you. You got married, you got divorced, you have a new baby, and something changed. Maybe if it's something positive like a new job and you want to move up. What we are seeing now is people have stayed in their home for a longer period of time. It's 10 years. It's pretty crazy to think that we are seeing people stay in their homes for that long. It's changing what people look for in that home. So maybe if they're moving to that suburb or that small town that's farther out, they're buying more home. And so they don't necessarily have to move quickly again. They've essentially skipped the starter home for many entry-level buyers.
Interesting. And I think that's going to be, to me, kind of one of the carryovers. We all talk about inventory right now and the lack of inventory, and this feeds into that. But can new housing starts overcome this issue of people staying in their homes longer?
No, unfortunately, we haven't seen that. Last year in 2021, we did see that housing starts were up overall, and that was encouraging. And we were hoping that this inventory would come into the marketplace. But even with those increase in housing starts, we didn't actually see those be housing completes. We saw a lot of contracts were actually canceled. Home buyers couldn't move in. There was delays. We all remember all of the supply delays, and it still is in some parts of the marketplace today, just not as widespread. And then there's, of course, labor's constraints as well. Finding those expertise, the plumber, the electrician to come in. I had my dryer vent cleaned this week, and seriously, I was on a wait list for weeks, and I was like, "It's a dryer vent. Isn't that just a vacuum? Like, I need this expert to come in." But to think of these lines that people have of these experts that you really do need to build these homes, it's just not available right now.
I do see that. You do see and hear that, across the board. We're not at the 18 weeks to get a refrigerator anymore, but it's more the skilled worker.
Right, right.
What does that look like? I see we've got a question over here. Margot Tappy asked, how do you see these issues being able to be turned around with first-time home buyers?
So, I mean, I am honestly, I promise you, I'm an optimistic person, but looking at the share of first-time home buyers, I think unless we have a lot of affordable inventory coming into the marketplace, it's going to be quite hard for first-time home buyers, especially if they're first-generation home buyers, to be able to enter into the market. The first-time home buyers that we see, 27% of them lived at home first. They moved home with family members. And I think that it's really striking to see the sacrifices that first-time home buyers are willing to make. That puts a lot of pressure on those parents, though, too, those boomers who are welcoming these young adults back in and saying you could save for your down payment this way. 22% of first-time home buyers had mom and dad's down payment assistance. So they're just cashing that check and writing that over to junior to purchase their first home. And I think that for a lot of young adults, it's going to be quite hard to do that, especially in this environment. Yeah.
How do you feel about FHFA and the duty to serve that they've given to Fannie and Freddie? Does that help play into this? Are we going to see more creative programs, allowances? I know they've already lifted some loan level price adjustments. They've made some changes there to try and help the affordability. But when your rates are 6.25, 6.5, it's still a problem.
Yeah. So on the flip side, I said a lot of depressing statements. I will say that right now it's certainly easier. So we probably would not see If we look this spring, just 6 months ago, what we saw is that there was 5.5 offers for every home that was listed. So not the high of 18, not for everyone at least, but on a national average, seeing that it's 5.5. That's still really high. Right now, we're seeing it about 2.4 offers for every home that's listed. This could be an opportunity for FHA borrowers, for VA, for USDA, for anyone who's taking out these loans for a first-time home buyer. This could be the environment that they may now be able to get that offer accepted. Of course, they have to have that higher income to afford the mortgage, but this could be the opportunity for these buyers to come in.
What do days on market look like versus where we were, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago?
Yeah, so days on market right now are 21. When we look at this on a national scale, we had hit an all-time low of 14. So everyone's saying days on market are going up, they're going up, they're going up. Sure, but from an all-time ever recorded low of 14 days on market. So the vast majority still moving in a month. The vast majority still actually getting asking price, a quarter moving above asking price. So still a pretty strong market for sellers. But it's just not the market that we had seen a couple months ago where we had that frenzied activity in the marketplace. And that's honestly good. It's more balanced.
Here's another question for us. How about the inventory that will come back into the market as boomers start leaving their home to family when they die?
Okay, well, that's a little bleak. What I would say is that, the inventory, I think, is going to be really tight. And unless we have more building, I think it could be quite difficult. When we look at the expected tenure of recent buyers, what we see for first-time home buyers, it's the highest we've ever recorded. It's 18 years. They expect to hold on to that home 18 years. That's truly astronomical. It's even higher than repeat buyers. Repeat buyers planning on holding on to that home for 15 years. If they locked in those low rates, they're going to have severe separation anxiety from that low interest rate to be able to move. And so I just don't know that we're going to see that movement moving forward for that inventory. And I don't know, maybe those boomers will their home and their mortgage. I don't think you can do that, but it is possible that they just pass on that home to junior as opposed to putting that home on the marketplace.
We certainly, I think, are seeing a lot of requests for trusts, properties be put in trust, and just to avoid the whole, process that you go through whenever there is a death. And it's interesting to see that. I think it's just kind of a phenomenon. I think we've got another comment over here. Continued problem will be increase in property taxes and homeowners insurance costs that will follow the increase in home prices. For first-time home buyers, absolutely. That's very.
Yeah. And even for seniors too, thinking about the increase in property taxes, I often think of my godmother. She'll turn 82 in March this year. And, she's not moving anywhere. She's staying in her single family residence, as 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and she's staying put. She even remodeled this last year. So really feeling quite comfortable in her home, but she is facing increased property taxes as well in the Seattle area. So we just have to think of that as well as of these older adults on fixed incomes who are facing that. Yeah.
How do you feel about the 10-year T-bill? There's a lot of speculation there. I had heard early on, it's not going to crest 3.5. Well, we've blown that out now. It's, come back a little. Do you think we've lost some of the volatility in it at this point, or do you see it still going back and forth? Or
I'm not sure. That gets out of my expertise, to tell you the truth. But it is possible. I don't know. I think we're going to have to see what Jay Powell does moving forward. I think the expectation is that we probably will see a rate increase, and that's of course going to ripple into the mortgage market moving forward as well.
right.
But the spread has been quite high. So perhaps we do see that rates stick around 6.5%. I think it'll be very interesting to tell.
Yeah, I think that spread's really interesting too. And I'm by no means an expert on that. I mean, I'm a political science major over here, so I don't know how I ended up in finance anyway. But one of the things you said that I thought was a really good thing to read was your number 11, and that was buyers and sellers use and want the help of an expert real estate agent and also a mortgage lender. Can you talk about that a little bit? I'd love to. We've got about 7 minutes left. If anybody's got questions, but I'd love to end up with some positive info too.
Oh, totally. Yeah, this is absolutely a positive note, is that we see that buyers and sellers absolutely do want the expertise today. It's a really stressful existence, I think, for all of us right now. There's a lot of anxiety that's going around in the world, just a lot of stress, and we want the experts by our side, and we're seeing it consistently in the data. When we ask buyers what they want from their agent, they're saying not just find the right home, it's also help negotiation. Help me understand what's next in that process. Help be the local expert, because even if you're a repeat buyer in the marketplace, you haven't done this in a decade. So thinking about what's next and how the process is different from 10 years ago, it is completely different. And so we have to keep that all in mind, that these really are new buyers as well, these repeat buyers. And for sellers, we ask them a bunch of follow-up questions here as well, and what they want from their seller and seller's agent. And what they're saying repeatedly is, I want someone who's going to do every step of the process. Tell me how to fix up that home for sale. Tell me how to market that home and price it correctly. Bring me to the closing table, and then past that closing table, tell me all the contacts as well that you have, and really be that be all end all. So having those relationships, I think, is incredibly important in this business, and keeping that open too.
How do you see that, continuing to manifest itself in the high tech world we live in today? I know we're a paperless lender at this point. We don't touch paper at all, and everything's imaged and we push it through. And we have buyers that want to do their whole transaction via text. They don't even want to. They don't want to come in. They want to talk to you. And how do real estate agents continue to be relevant in the market that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's using tech. It's a tool. And every buyer out there, 99% of buyers are using tech in their process. I would just say it's just one of the many tools, but you can't ask questions to Google, and you Google your way into a doctor's appointment. Well, you can do the same thing with real estate, right? So you want to make sure that you actually ask the expert, the boots on the ground, especially when people are moving 50 miles, you don't know that local area. And one of the things that I think is really interesting that's happening right now is, we ask this on a monthly basis, the share of clients who you've worked with who are actually buying that home sight unseen. It's still happening. We had no reason to ask this question pre-COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, but there's 6% of the marketplace right now who never physically walked into that home. They worked with our agent. And especially if you're working in an area where there's a lot of migration flow, say Nashville, or you're working in Austin, there's a lot of people moving to those areas from other places in the country. And so they may not be able to jump on a flight and see that home before it's under contract. And they need that agent to tell them what that house smells like, what the neighborhood is like. Do you hear a train out back that we can't see in the virtual photos? So being able to really have that reliance on that agent and that expertise is so important. And tech is a tool. It's a tool in the process, but the people are really what makes it run.
That is so critical. I think I can relate in this way. We were visiting a large city, and we're looking at Airbnb, for a week, and the place looked so fabulous. And my husband kind of started figuring out how to circle down, get to the neighborhood where we are, and we see cars on cinder blocks in the street, and we see turned over trash cans, and just not. We were like, well, that might be a diamond in the jungle, but we're not in for the jungle. It's not where we want to be.
Yeah. Are you able to take a walk down the street and enjoy yourself in the evening? Well, if not, that's not the place to be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I do think there's so much value in a real estate agent and those relationships that they have locally with other people, with how do you navigate the town, the neighborhood. It's important. There's so much value to that with real estate agents, and I guess that's one of those time held things that's not going to change.
Yeah.
What have we got here? We bought our home. We had zero down loan. Good faith payment was all. As young people buying a home, it's the only reason we're in the homeowner's environment where apartment rent proves we can pay the mortgage. What you're saying there, Sarah, is so true. I think to keep first-time home buyers coming into the market, they've got to have affordable options that allow them the ability to buy homes. They got to have homes to buy and affordable loans out there. That's really what I find people are looking for is we talk to first-time home buyers here. And we're still seeing people that are out there and they're putting 6-8 pre-quals in, offers in on homes and not getting them, but they kind of have gotten used to that in a way.
Yeah, it's true. And, I think we all kind of have short memories, but the experts are going to lead us on our side in this changing market. So, keep up to date on the data, and you can lead your clients there for sure.
That sounds great to me. So now, Amy, do you want to lead us? We got another session coming up, I'm sure. What's up next?
We do. We have one coming up at 3:30, but just wanted to say thank you to both of you once again. Great conversation. And I put in the chat that I had a friend who did exactly that. She was telling me about this Texas. We're in Ohio, and she had a buyer in Texas, and the buyer couldn't get out. And it was when everything was, super, like many contracts or many offers, on the same home, and she literally went through with, FaceTime and walked through every single and looked at the, wallpaper, like whatever it was, but needed to do such an in-depth walkthrough with her, and she bought it sight unseen. So yeah, very, very different than what we're all used to, who've been in the business for 20 some odd years. So awesome conversation, lots of chat, lots of compliments in the chat for both of you. Really do appreciate it. Coming up next at 2:30 is our session on emerging marketing strategies that are working for mortgage lenders. So definitely head over there. Gabriela Mendocino, who is a former TMC employee, is going to be speaking. She is just amazing and we love her. So go check that out. And then after that is the rundown with Robin Rich. That is a TMC favorite. We've got a ton of registrations. You will need to register for that because that is a regular running show for TMC, and it'll take you out directly to Zoom. So please register, don't miss it. It's always a good laugh. Always fun to see where Rob Christman's going to be each episode, because it's always someplace exciting. And that one is sponsored by Vice Capital Markets. Chris Bennett from Vice Capital Markets will be on, and he is truly insightful, gives us a lot of good information. So ladies, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
That's a great conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you, Dr. Lautz.